And we are rolling on August 21st, 2018. It's a beautiful sunny day in Los Angeles here at UCLA. Sunshine is shining on our beautiful campus. Y'all, of course, took out your evil earbuds and put away your telephones and admired our beautiful buildings and trees and shrubs as you walk the campus, right?
Great.
What your coach taught you to do, right? Stop and smell the roses. Yeah. Okay. And is it Abelmo?
Abby.
Abby,
Abby,
okay,
yeah.
okay, Abby. Let me put that down, yeah. Abby, okay. Abby stands before us, managing attention. Put your hands where we can see them. Communicating respect. Saying to himself, I respect my audience, he really means it. Finding friendly eyes near the front and the center. Say your name, feel the love, say your seat.
Hi everybody, my name is Abby.
Hi, Abby.
Hi. You know that guy that while you were doing your experiment really ignored you because he was looking at his phone and he was listening to music? Well, usually I'm that kind of guy. Once the class is done, I put on my earphones, start listening to music, and walk to my next class. So when Professor Miller told us to express respect to everybody we meet without actually telling them that we respect them, I had a hard time. But throughout this experiment, I learned a couple of things, and I've experienced some good, some bad, and some ugly reactions from people that I will tell you shortly. Let me start off with the good. For the good, most of the good comes when people smile at you. It feels really good when people actually smile at you and look at you because you feel acknowledged. So what I did when somebody smiled at me, I smiled back. But when the professor told us that somebody tried it at McDonald's, I wanted to try it myself. So one day, it was the day after that he gave us the experiment, I went to McDonald's, and I was in the car preparing what I was going to say, because I didn't want to look like a fool. So I was in my car practicing, and when I would go into McDonald's, there was two people ahead of me. And sure thing, they order without looking at the person. They look at the menu and didn't even say hi. So when I got to the person, I said, hi, how are you? She's like, fine, how are you? I'm like, fine, thank you for asking. And I proceeded by ordering my food. She didn't give me anything. She didn't give me apple pie or anything. But she gave me a smile, and she was talking to me as a person, and I made her feel acknowledged, which felt more special than she would have actually given me an apple pie. Another thing that happened is, I was working as a gardener. I work as a gardener over the weekend, and I was watering the plants, and the next door neighbor, he said hi, and I said hi, and we started talking, and he's like, can you please do my lawn? And I was like, sure thing. And we started talking, and he's like, how much will you charge me? It's like, whatever you want, it's fine. He's like, it's $20, okay? I'm like, yeah, that's perfect. So I did the lawn, and then after I was finished, I knocked on the door, and I told him, the job was complete. And after he said, oh, it's so beautiful, thank you so much. And we started talking. He thought my name was Jesus because my name tag said Jesus, that's my dad's name. So I thought he was being a little racist, but then I realized that my name tag said Jesus. And then we started talking, and then for like 10 minutes, and after he went inside, and instead of giving me $20, he gave me $30. So I thought that was a good of this experiment. Now, let's go to the bad. For the bad part, most of the time, people didn't even look at me, which is exactly what I did to people. I didn't even look at them. But it feels bad when somebody doesn't look at you because cell phones are taking so much attention of our lives that we don't even notice sometimes until we pay attention. But I don't know who said it in the first speech, but I tried this experiment at the gym, and I don't recommend it. It's just painfully awkward. I tried it, and a couple of guys gave me a bad look, and it feels very bad because they're all fit. I'm not that fit. But the worst experience is I was walking in the gym, and two girls were crossing me, and I said, I respect you, without telling them. And they rolled their eyes, and I got kind of hurt, so I rolled my eyes again. But afterwards, I understood that maybe they feel like I was checking them out because some guys at the gym could be a little bit creepy. So I just don't recommend you guys trying this experiment in the gym just because it's painfully awkward. And for the ugly, I really don't have anything ugly that happened throughout this experiment. But as a gardener, sometimes as a way of showing respect, we stop our machines and we try to say hi or give them a smile. And a few weeks before the experiment was given, I was working here in Westwood, and I stopped my machine because a gentleman was walking his dog. And I said hi, he didn't say anything, he didn't even say thank you. And as I kept walking and kept working, his dog took a poop on the grass, which is perfectly normal. But he had no intention of picking it up until I asked him to pick it up. And he didn't want to pick it up, but he did. And I feel like what I learned from this experience is that we often respect people that have like a good job or a good position, but people that are like a McDonald's worker or a janitor or a gardener don't get the same amount of respect that other people do. So I encourage you guys to try, if you see a gardener or a janitor out here, say hi. It makes their day really special. And that's it. Thank you very much.
Thank you. 441, very nice, Abby.
Thank you.
Okay, let's start in the, we're in the front before, so let's start in the rear. Let's go way to the back, that's it.
Hey, Abby. My name's Nick.
Nick?
Hi, Nick.
Hi, Nick.
I think you're a really funny dude, so
Thank
keep
you.
up the good work. Yeah, I like how you also employ the audience at the end to respect all the janitors and gardeners out there. So
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, good. Here.
Hi, I'm Christina.
Hi,
Christina. So I also really like your speech. I like how you engaged with the audience and you made us laugh and you kept us, we're very attentive. The things that you can fix, however, is when you are making your steps, you do tend to turn away from the audience. So just
Right.
make sure that you're more facing us when you are walking.
Thank you.
Great point, Christina. Great. Okay, Abby, let me talk to you about your speech, which I like. Put your hands where we can see them. You might think you have a gun. Oh. Step that way a little bit. Yeah. No, too much. Yeah. Okay, perfect. Well, I liked your introduction, which talked about earphones and earbuds and how difficult this was going to be to do and that sort of thing. That sort of was engaging. I think people could, relate to it. In the future, I mentioned to people that I wanted to see a poem, a quote, a story, or even a joke as a way to grab your audience, draw them in, and make them want to listen. So experiment with some of those ideas next time. On your good example, I was chuckling to myself. I didn't get an apple pie. That was pretty funny. Yeah. I like the way you rehearsed in the car. That was good, so you didn't make a fool of yourself. I also like you didn't mention, but you said thank you so much. And I hope you'll get in the habit of using that a lot. And I also like the story of the neighbor with the $30, and you thought there was a microaggression when he called you Jesus.
I didn't know this.
I love that term. Mm-hmm. So those were good stories, and what I didn't get, Jesus, which I needed to get more of, was were you consciously saying the mantra as you were talking to him, and occasionally saying, "I respect you" as you were talking to him, because that's what you're supposed to be doing. So
Right.
mention them, okay?
Yeah.
On the bad, you mentioned that most people ignored you, which I warned you that would be true. Yeah, the gym, people are funny, and you're right, it's really tricky, because there's a certain narcissism there, I'm fit, and I got a great bod, so don't stare too long, and so you have to be careful, and the optimal thing is just I respect you and look away, not a long look. So I don't know if it was a long look at the girls or whatever, but
Maybe so.
yeah, could be. It could have been, but you know, the eye roll is a tough thing to take because it's kind of a negative put down. So I empathized with you, and I appreciate you trying to experiment at the gym, but you know, you can still try. I respect you and look away, you know, but I've actually over the years had a lot of reports of problems at the gym with people saying, "What are you staring at?" And you know,
It's very awkward.
and people are waiting for the weight machines. Are you rushing me and stuff like that? Yeah, it's weird. Yeah. Yeah. On the ugly, which should have been a new paragraph because it's a new idea.
Okay, yeah.
Do you remember that? Man walking his dog and not cleaning up after his dog. Yeah, that's pretty disrespectful. And I was glad you stood up for yourself and your lawn. You know, that's just wrong. Yeah. So that was good. And what you learned was well spoken. Try to remember to have a kind of a tie back to what you start with.
Okay.
And then, you know, if you start with a poem, then make some reference to that at the end. Otherwise, nice job, Abby. Thank you. Another volunteer? Yes, hello.
Hi.
It's Mia, not Mia. Yeah. Call me Mia. It's Mia. Call me Mia. Okay. Hello. Nia stands before us. Yeah, that's good. Yeah. Very nice. Managing attention. Good. Communicating respect. Making sure all eyeballs are upon you. Yes, they are. Good. And say your name, feel the love, and start your speech. Yes.
Hi everyone, my name is Nia.
Hi, Nia.
So this afternoon I'm going to talk to you about how I portrayed respect non-verbally to those around me. And I did this by looking people in the eye, giving a smile and a slight head nod. And considering summer school is in, there's a lot of people on campus, and I figured now would be the perfect time to go out and do this experiment. So I got a couple reactions, the good, the bad, and the ugly. The good. I immediately walked out of class and I began to do this experiment, and I saw a girl coming in my direction, and I looked at her, I smiled, nodded, and she did the same thing back to me. So I felt really good knowing that I showed her respect non-verbally, and she showed respect back to me. Now the bad. I did the same, I was repeating the I respect you mantra over and over again in my head, so I'm really focusing on it. And I found myself starting to stare at people a little longer than I should have. And I was staring at a young man coming in my direction all the way until he got like this close to me. And then I smiled, nodded, and I'm still kind of looking at him. And he's giving me like the side eye, looking at me kind of crooked, like, why is she still looking at me? And I could tell he was really uncomfortable, kind of ran away. And then I felt uncomfortable knowing that I made him uncomfortable. So then again, I'm focusing on the I respect you mantra and trying not to stare at people. And I found myself in a little bit of a daydream or a little bit of a daze. And this is when the ugliest happened. So I see another girl coming in my direction, and I'm staring at her for like 5 minutes. Like I fixed my eyes on her, like all the way down the street, and then I'm staring at her, and I looked at her, I smiled, and I nodded, and she was like, "What?" And I was like so startled, I was shook. I didn't even know what to say because I wasn't expecting that type of reaction, but it was because I was staring at her for way too long, and I should not have. So overall, I learned that in order to show respect, most of the time, the respect that you put out to the universe is the type of respect they're going to receive back to you. So for me, I learned that I need to look at people not as long, just quickly look at them, smile, nod, and continue on with my day, and I shall receive respect back. Thank you.
Yeah. you. Yeah? Back row, continue the progression, please. Say something good first, please.
Hi everyone, I'm Lizette.
Hi, Lizette.
Hi, Lisa.
I feel like you had a really strong thesis and I feel like you really stuck with it and explained it thoroughly. So I liked the whole story and it was easy to follow along as the audience.
Thank you, Lisa. And how can Nia improve?
Hey everyone, I'm Lou.
Hi, Lou.
So I also really enjoyed your speech, but I noticed that you didn't do a walk. And maybe it would like help you loosen up so you didn't have to move your hands so much. Okay. But I really liked it. Thank you.
Yeah, I really like your speech. I like your honesty and how you practiced it. And I was a little worried when you said I just smiled and nodded my head that you weren't saying it inside, but then you quickly told me that you were, and that's the most important thing you can do because the smile and the nod sometimes can get you in trouble, but you know, men especially are, yeah, look, you understand. Anyway, yeah. For your intro, you kind of just sort of went into it. And so next time look for a poem, a quote, a story, a joke, so you can grab us a little better. But I appreciate you sort of setting the tone. You wandered around the campus, and that was good. The good, yeah. The smile, it's always good when you make that connection. It's just that your heart is pure and it's innocent and high, and on you go, yeah. And respectful vibrations given back. On the bad, yeah. I like your honesty. Yeah, the kid was probably freaked out. He probably went and looked in the mirror and said, do I have my zipper down, or do I leave my hair is bad, or is something wrong, you know? So, yeah, that was you gotta watch that, yeah, because that's yeah. Yeah, so that was good, yeah. And the 5 minutes there was, yeah. That's a long time, yeah. So I like your conclusion. It was very succinct, and my only concern is just make sure you have some kind of circular tie back, so wherever you start, you come back to that. But nice job, Nia.
Thank you.
Okay, next. Hello.
Hi, how are you?
Do we have a substitute timer?
Yes, Nia is going to.
Okay, excellent. Yeah. Oh, what, did I get Nia's time? What was she?
It was 3:02.
A little short there, Nia. So. Okay, hello. Jade stands in the power stance. Let your hands just be loose. Are all eyeballs upon you? If they're not, one tactic you can do that's friendly. If someone is reading or looking down, or something, just go, you know, cough a little bit. That's friendly. Don't, or that, you know, just friendly. Jade stands before you, managing intention, communicating respect non-verbally. Say your name, feel the love, start your speech.
Hi everyone, my name is Jade.
Hi, Jade.
So being that this was my very first speech and I really had no idea how to approach it, I immediately resorted to typing in quotes about respect into my search bar, hoping for the perfect introduction and the ultimate inspiration. However, as I scrolled through countless cliches, nothing I was reading really resonated with me. And it was at that point that I realized I had no other choice but to discover my own definition of respect. So I ran into this exercise with full force, because this idea of nonverbal respect sparked a genuine curiosity in me. How would my conscious effort to show respect towards strangers using only my actions affect them? And how would it affect me? So there was good, there was bad, and there was definitely some ugly, but it's an experience I won't forget. So I started with small gestures because frankly, I was nervous. So I tried to hold longer and more sincere eye contact with people when I thanked them, and when I locked eyes with a stranger on the street, I didn't just dart my eyes away, I actually gave them a smile. And although these were such small choices that required minimal effort, and I don't have any incredible stories that amount to those of my peers, I started to feel much more connected to both my environment and the individuals surrounding me. And I'd like to imagine that some of those I interacted with experienced the same comfort. But as much as I idealized, oftentimes my gestures were ignored. I had a Starbucks barista last week, and the minute I started talking to her, I could tell that she was unhappy and annoyed to be there. So I thought that maybe by being overly polite and cheerful, it might actually lighten her mood. But I was definitely wrong about that, because her negative demeanor remained constant throughout the entirety of our transaction, and if anything, she seemed more irritated by the time we were done talking. It seemed that no matter what I did or how hard I tried, most of the time people just did not care. But even just one warm smile back or an equally as pleasant interaction, and I felt empowered. I felt like I had made an impact, no matter how minuscule. So sure, there was the bad. Oftentimes, well, most of the time, I was completely ignored. But even just one recognition of my effort, a sprinkle of the good, made it totally worth the while. So then, I wanted to do something more bold. So I searched anywhere and everywhere for an opportunity to help. And let's just say my success rate plummeted. So my first attempt was holding the door open for two girls that were a considerable distance away. And by that I mean all the way down the hallway. But I thought that this was a noble and patient effort. But the girls did not agree. They seemed super aggravated, as if I had placed this burden on them that they now had to pick up their pace to catch up with me. As if I had put them in this awkward situation that they wouldn't have been in otherwise. So I would call that failure number one. My second attempt was with an older woman that was a bit ahead of me as I was walking to class, and she dropped her wallet, so I quickly picked up my pace and dove down in a valiant effort to retrieve it to her. And I thought that I'd be greeted with immense gratitude. But by the look on her face, I could tell that I had not only totally invaded her personal space, but she also looked insulted, as if I assumed that she couldn't do the job of retrieving herself because of her age. These ugly and rather embarrassing encounters proved to me that searching too much for an opportunity to show respect actually made the action disingenuous, and that was very obvious to those that were acted upon. Nonverbal respect should be something that comes somewhat naturally, in the sense that it doesn't involve you going completely out of your way, but rather paying mind to what is in your way and acting with consideration and etiquette. That's not to say that a random act of kindness doesn't go a long way, but there is something about too much unwarranted kindness that comes across as insincere. And at that point, you'll know you've went too far. I think that respect can come from a variety of intention. It could be to get on someone's good side. It can be an act to secure your own ambitions. It could stem from genuine love and admiration, or genuine fear and intimidation, or even a mix of both. But making the decision to tell yourself the I respect you mantra to strangers, simply because you regard it as human decency and something that every human deserves unless they prove otherwise, is an admirable effort, and it's an idea that I will strive to incorporate into my mentality moving forward. Thank you.
Let's get in the power stand. Thank you. Okay, in the rear, continue.
Hi, I'm Alicia.
Hi, Alicia.
I really like your speech. My favorite thing about it was that you had a lot of tone variations. I think you could tell that you were really passionate about your speech, that like you were really into it,
Yeah.
and you got our attention for that, and that's what I really like about it. Thank
Mhm.
you.
Yeah. Improvement.
My name is Nevin.
Hi, Nevin. Stay in the power stand.
Sorry.
Bad habit.
Because you can feel it throughout the room. But I wish you could preface your stories with before saying like this is the good, this is the bad, so at least it's easier to follow along with the audience.
Okay.
Great. Okay.
Your time is 4:30.
4:30. Perfect. Great. Thank you. Thank you. Jade, yeah, I really liked your speech a lot. One quality that Jade has, one quality that Jade has that was isolated by Alicia is she was naturally enthusiastic about it. And that's contagious. It makes you want to listen. She cares. she was interested in it. You're like, it wasn't a monotone, she didn't bore you. All I had to do is stupid respect speech. I did. She genuinely did it and had a passion about it. And it was sincere and real. She had great vocal variety. And that's a great quality if you could find that in yourself each time you speak. Find it and use it. Okay, thank you. So, Jay, that's the first thing I want to say on a positive note. That was good. So, remember that. And let's talk about the ways you can improve. First off, do you know what a narrative is? What I mean by narrative is that it means that you tell your audience what you're going to do. You know, you say, I'm going to tell you about the good, the bad, the ugly, and you kind of do that with your voice because you're making a pact with them.
Okay.
And then when you go to the good, you say, so let me tell you about the good. Really a lot of good, but just something more connected. But besides the good, let me tell you about the bad. You see, as someone pointed out from, they really couldn't follow you. It was all just sort of a stream of consciousness. And you'll see that tonight when you watch yourself on YouTube, that you were just sort of going with it, without telling us where you were. And audiences like to know where this fits in. On the bad, see, Starbucks barista and her negative demeanor, just relax your hands and be by your side, Starbucks barista, that sometimes happens, and they're not supposed to be uptight and negative. They're in the service industry, but I've heard these many reports about Starbucks baristas. It's like, whatever, just get out of my face, That's sad. And I liked your attitude about it, which was like, despite the fact that you were ignored or whatever, you still felt sort of empowered in doing it. And that was good. You said you felt a little lonely, unappreciated, but there was some good in it. On the ugly, holding the door open, maybe too far. The women said, what are you doing? And the old lady took away her dignity. Oh, you think I can't pick up my wallet? I've had that experience, by the way, because I used to volunteer in a senior citizen home, and some of them really want to be, treated with a deferential sense of independence. They don't want to be, I can get that, sonny boy, and you think I can't reach over and get my magazine? You have to hand it to me? Okay. Just trying to be helpful, right? So, on your walking, and then we didn't get the ugly, but I would have preferred you say the good, the bad, and way over here, and then the ugly back to center. But you see what I'm saying? You stayed with the good and the bad over there, and then you kind of got a little bit over here on the ugly, and then you had the what I learned in a conclusion here. I thought you were very insightful in terms of what you learned. You were very articulate, and it was very thoughtful. Yes, I agree. Too much of it and too obvious about it can seem disingenuous, and you don't want to do that. Your heart has to be pure when you practice that. And I really liked your ending, which you said, giving this to strangers, and I liked your caveat, until they prove otherwise. You don't have to respect a pig, if you know what I mean. But the other thing I would like to see you do is you have, it's kind of interesting, but your arms were sort of, you kept your movements sort of down here a lot. I like to see them move into the upper body range.
I was trying to like limit my gestures because I thought you didn't like that, but I talk like this.
No, I could tell that you were, and that's why I'm reluctant to talk about hand gestures first, because the minute I say something to somebody that does a lot of this, they go down here and they keep it down.
Yeah.
And you were keeping it down. It's like, it's too much down.
Okay.
So try to find a balance.
Okay.
But yeah, let me end on a positive note. Really excellent job. It was really good. Yeah. And I thought you, and I liked your the way you went and tried to steal someone else's insight about respect, and plagiarize someone else's.
I did that?
No, not. Bad choice of words on that. Sorry. No, well, when you don't, when you don't, you were trying to come to your own conclusion about what respect is, and when you just don't bother to do the work and go, oh, Mark Twain said respect is this, you're just being lazy.
Yeah.
And that's what I meant by plagiarizing.
Okay.
You're just going, oh, Mark Twain said this is all I need to say. Mark Twain said respect is, being nice to people. And that's what I meant. You said, none of this works for me. This is all phony. So you didn't want to do that. You wanted to be genuine. So what I was looking for in a tie-back, Jade, is that you say, so what is respect? You just lost Aretha Franklin, or R.E.S.P.C.T., but I think I know a little better now, having experimented with the idea and refer back to your, so I don't need to go to the internet. I think I know a little better now what respect is. See, then we know you've come the full circle. So that's what I would do.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank
Jay.
you.
You're welcome. All right, we have another volunteer. No? No volunteers? No, okay, I'll call on people. There we go, excellent, yeah. Hello, how you doing? Good. I was just gonna call on you.
Yeah, I figured.
Okay. A little wider than your power stance, feet wider. Yeah, let's take like a tripod. Susan stands before us, making sure all eyeballs are upon you, are they? No? Oh, yeah. Say your name, feel the love, start your speech.
I'm Susan.
Hi, Susan.
So Dr. Seuss once wrote that a person's a person no matter how small. And despite these words being written for a children's book, they offer wisdom to people of all ages. He's trying to highlight the importance of respecting everyone regardless of how small or how fleeting their presence may be in your life. So within 48 hours, I decided to implement his ideas, and with the experiment assigned, I non-verbally respected everyone. Mantra plus smile or glance and nodding to acknowledge them. And ultimately it led to some good, some bad, and some ugly encounters. The good was pretty refreshing. More people were reciprocating than I had anticipated. They were smiling back, nodding, some even held doors open for me, which was all nice. But the most notable experience was at work, where a mom who has spent months continuously just ignoring me and my coworkers acting as if we didn't exist, decided to suddenly just stop and have a chat. She was talking about her kid, how impressed she is with his growth, even plans about their vacation for the summer. None of this information was particularly important, but but it was the fact that she stopped and decided to acknowledge me and treat me as if I was actually present instead of ignoring me, which is what was really important in that situation. The bad wasn't necessarily bad. I would think it was better classified as annoying. I was trying to leave UCLA and I came to a stop sign. Obviously, I have to check for pedestrians, and someone was coming, so I nodded at them, respected them, and let them go. But while I was waiting, I didn't realize that a conference had just let out. So there was a series of people just coming my way, and when I tried to look over to clear to go, they had already started crossing. And so it was about 5 minutes of me sitting in my car, attempting to silently respect all of these people and just being continuously ignored while they were just walking really slowly, and it was like 30 people that were just crossing the road. It wasn't pleasant, but it was okay. It gave me the opportunity to practice silently reciting, I respect you. The ugliest encounter would probably have been the Starbucks one that I had Wednesday morning. I had naively thought that, okay, I can walk up to the counter and say, hi, how are you? And I would get a positive reaction back. I did not. The person was just glaring at me. And then it was a good 5 seconds before he went on and responded with, what do you want to order today? With attitude, very clearly. So I just went ahead, quickly placed my order, thanked him, and walked away, thinking that was the end of our awkward encounter. No. I was standing on the side waiting for my drink, and so I'm trying to just respect everyone else around me, and as I'm scoping the room, I make eye contact again, and he's still glaring, guys. It was so uncomfortable that I had to walk out of there ridiculously fast to end the situation. But regardless of all of these mixed outcomes from this experiment, I would classify it as a success. It helped me realize that making a small change can drastically alter your perceptions and help you maintain positive throughout the day. And it also helped me realize that respecting others is important and is easily incorporated into our everyday routine. So, thank you.
Thank you.
That was 329.
29. You go back to the center of the room now. There. Okay, thank you. Okay, in the back, continue.
Yeah,
Hi, Jack.
I thought you were like really articulate and you seemed really comfortable. You had like a good vibe up there. You seemed like you were ready to go. I
Thank you, Jack. Improvement.
Hi, I'm Nadia.
Hi, Nadia.
Hey, Nadia.
I enjoyed your speech overall, but I think you do need to work on more variation in your tone of voice. Like in certain parts, you could have lowered it higher. So overall, it's a good speech.
Okay. Yeah, Susan, I really liked your speech. I was laughing to myself. I was going, oh my God, another Starbucks story. Oh my God. Okay, well, I should send these to the president of Starbucks. I have so many on tape, you know. Oh well, yeah. Let me start at the very beginning. I love your quote, but everyone listen to this. When you do a quote, quotes are heavy, and you need to slow down and let them sink in and give people a moment. A person's a person, no matter how small. Despite the fact that those words are from Dr. Zeus. You see what I'm saying? And then you went on to explain it, which was wonderful. You didn't just transition into the, I did a respect experiment, but, slow down for quotes. And then the concept of the tieback means that I needed to hear about Dr. Zeus in the ending. So the person is a person, no matter how small. And I learned that by giving respect, I have been able to incorporate the words and the philosophy of Dr. Zeus into my life. See? And that's kind of elegant and nice. And you tell the audience you've come the full circle. Susan, I like an outline. I asked for an outline of your speech. Who has an outline you can hold up and show? Anybody? Yeah. It means the Roman numerals and anybody have an outline? Yeah, like this, see? It should have had an intro. Yeah. Not paragraphs, because paragraphs are real hard to remember and they're real dense. And it'll help you to hand it an outline. You can still have little mini paragraphs, but hand it an outline. So that's the second thing I want to talk to you about. It's the same thing I was saying to Jade East here, that your narrative needed to be with your voice. And I know you're sick, but good, bad, ugly. First the good, now the bad, now the ugly. What did I learn? Ooh, we can follow you. I know it sounds a little pedantic now, but it'll be good for you if you get in that habit. Yeah. Well, that's a good story. The mother that sort of blew you off for life, and then suddenly opened up and talked about her child and acknowledged you. Really good story. The bad encounter, yeah. Yeah, okay. This happens. I empathize with you. I have a habit of when I'm crossing a crosswalk and a car is waiting for me, I walk faster to not hold them up. But if you've ever noticed, and I've made a generalization about certain groups of teenagers love to slowly walk when you're waiting for them and wave at you sometimes, smile. Have you had that experience? No, not yet. Okay, well you will. Yeah, but you handled it well with saying your mantra as you sat there waiting, and it was good. Now, I want to ask you a question about your ugly experience, which is, why do you suppose that the Starbucks barista glared at you? Did you expose him for the nasty phony that he was not supposed to be, and he hated himself at that moment for being such a nasty person? That's my sort of guess, but what do you think? Why did he bad vibe you out of the Starbucks? Or stinky eye you out of the Starbucks? I don't know what the right word is, but that's what he did, right? Yeah.
Ran out.
He what?
I just kind of ran out of there.
Yeah.
It may have just been that he was already having a bad morning, and so.
But he's focused on you.
Right, and I think it was just because he was just trying to get through his day, through his shift, be as efficient as possible, and me trying to have that small talk wasn't really helping him get to his end goal.
But why you?
Why me? I don't know.
Okay, all right. I'm just curious. That was funny, Yeah. Okay. And your final comment was good. A little short, but good. Yeah. And like I said, you needed a tie back. And I agree with the comment. You want to practice having vocal variety. And I try to talk with more emphatic thing. I try to give so students have a model of not being in a monotone, of high, low, fast, slow, so you break it up so you're interesting to listen to. See? Okay, thank you, Susan. All right, next. Hello. How you doing?
Good, how are you?
Good. Well, actually, you're next person I was going to call. How do you know? Okay. Oh, you're perfect. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Cindy, are all eyeballs upon you? Good. Communicate respect. Say your name and start.
Hi, my name is Cindy.
Hi, Cindy.
So, religious leader Thomas Monson once said, when you treat a person as they are, they will appear as they are. When you treat a person as they should be, they will appear as they should be. So I take this experience as an opportunity to practice nonverbal respect, and I communicate respect to people by making direct eye contact and also maintaining correct body posture and body orientation. In addition, I will also smile to acknowledge the presence of the person I'm speaking to in order to present myself as a respectful person. So let me tell you about the good, the bad, as well as the ugly during the experiment. So as a worker in the food service industry, I encounter a lot of people during my shift. In particular, when I try to convey nonverbal respect, I feel like a lot of people are more likely to approach me, and they also smile more. In particular, there was this guy who came up to me, and he seemed to be at a loss because he was visiting the campus, and he did not know how to get to the UCLA bookstore. So we engaged in a little conversation, and as it turns out, I was also headed that way. So I offered to walk him to the bookstore. And we talked during our walk, and he mentioned how he wanted to get some gears for his sons. And I mentioned to him that there are more affordable options in Westwood, and they give more cheaper gears for his sons. So he thanked me and told me what a pleasant event it was to have met me, and it was a really highlight of my day. Of course, not all of the encounters were in the positive. Most of the time, people just ignore me as expected, and as many of you might have already encountered. And there was this one day when I was sitting in a restaurant, and it was pretty crowded, so I was sitting at a table alone, and these girls came up to me, and I think they were trying to sit at the table with me. But when I glance up and make direct eye contact, they seemed to be really scared and just turned away. So I think my eye contact was a little bit too abrupt, so they got really scared and turned away instead of feeling respected. As for the ugly, it wasn't a very violent encounter. I was at the check stand during my shift, and these people just tried to line up and try to get into the restaurant. And I was helping them in, and I was trying to engage with them as an individual, so I was asking how their day was, and then kind of ticking all the little items off my list of nonverbal respect. But I think I was compromising my workplace, so it got a little bit awkward because I was working not as efficiently. So I got a few dirty glasses at the back of the line, but that was enough for me to adjust my workplace, so it didn't get too ugly. Overall, I feel like this experience taught me a lesson is that respect is mutual. So as Monson said, when you treat a person as they should be, they will appear as they should be. When you treat a person as a human, they will also treat you in return as a human. In addition, when I encounter rude encounters, I would remind myself not to engage in those behaviors, so as to present myself as respectful. In the future, I would hope to integrate these nonverbal respect gesture into my daily routine so as to show my respect to others and hopefully elicit positive response as well. Thank you.
Thank you.
That was 340.
340, thank you. Okay. Next, in the back, please, a positive comment. Yes.
Hi, Emily.
Hi, Anthony.
I like your speech. I think you called it out pretty well. I was able to get all your points.
What?
She followed the outline very well, and I was able to get all the main points.
Yeah, great. Thank you, yeah.
Hi, I'm Sun.
Hi, Son.
I just thought that was a good speech, but I think you stopped on the right side where I think the bad and the ugly, and I think those are more effective. We just walked to the middle so that we can know when you're gonna talk about them.
Yeah. Okay. Great. Cindy, I like your speech and the way you articulated how you communicated non-verbally, so we knew exactly what you did. I didn't hear you mention that you repeated the mantra of "I respect you" inside. Were you doing that?
Yeah,
Okay,
I
good.
just didn't
Okay.
mention
You
it in
didn't
the
say
message
that,
yet.
so that was assumed, right? Okay, good. I worry some people don't do that, and they think that they're just supposed to smile a lot. Okay, good. Let me help you improve. First off, one thing I would say, just an overarching comment, would be just work on some vocal variety. Louder, softer, faster, slower. So you're a little more interesting to listen to and a little more enthusiasm, for what you're saying and doing. Yeah. Who is this author or person you were quoting?
He's a religious leader.
A religious leader. And what's his name?
Thomas Monson.
Monson. Okay. Okay. So, and this it goes for everybody. If most people go to the internet and they find a quote on respect from Joe Jones, and they go, according to Joe Jones, he said respect is, and they never tell us who Joe Jones is, and it helps with the credibility to tell us who the author is, if it's a author or someone that has written 10 books or a poet. And so in this case, a religious leader, would be helpful to know. Okay, so that was the first thing. I want to compliment you on tying back to your quote in the end. So you're thinking ahead, and that was good. So thank you for that. On the good, again, and the bad and the ugly, just up it with your voice a little bit. Okay? You say you're in the food service industry, and so that was where you make your living, or you have to interact with people a great deal. And I like your story of walking somebody down to the bookstore and then saving him some money by telling him don't buy at the bookstore, because it's expensive. So that was very kind of you. That was very helpful. I was in Paris a few years ago, and I was late for my plane, and a perfect stranger said, "I'll get you there," and he put me on the back of his motorcycle and got me to the airport in time, and tried to pay him everything, and be nice to the next stranger you meet, he said, and he zoomed away. It was an amazing event, but I like that play it forward kind of thing, so it was good. On the bad, yeah, you have to be careful about how long you look or how you look, and I think you're probably right. Maybe you startled them a little with your eye contact or something. Yeah. On the ugly, yeah, you have to be careful about too much engagement, because I think you're kind of odd or something. So you were right in sort of sensing you were overdoing it. Yeah, so you pulled back. That was good. And I like what you learned and your tie back. So overall, it was a good job. Just work on the things that I talked about, Cindy. Thank you. Okay. We have a volunteer. Otherwise, I'd like volunteer. Great. Thank you.
This is fine.
No, over that way. Yeah, this way. Right there. Yeah. Okay, let's just here that way. Yeah. Okay. I like. Yeah. Okay. Lou, are all eyeballs upon you? Great. You have a nice power stance. Your arms are at your side, very nicely situated. Okay. Say your name, feel the love, start your speech.
Hey everyone, I'm Lou.
Hi, Lou.
Hi, so as you all know, in today's society, we often communicate and depend on technological devices, right, such as cell phones. For example, instead of showing facial expressions, we tend to just use emojis. It's a lot easier and it's fun, right? So when given this assignment, I was very nervous. I didn't know what to expect, and I did get various reactions, which I categorized into good, bad, and ugly. So starting off with the good. Right after our first class, I went straight to another lecture hall, and it was super packed. I was looking for an empty seat, and I found one, and it was, a girl was sitting next to it. I looked at her, I said the mantra, I respect you, I smiled, and then I sat down. I got all my stuff out, my note-taking materials, and then, and I just sat there. And she initiated a conversation instead of asking basic questions like, oh, what year are you? What's your major? She got very personal. She noticed that there was a picture of my brother in my phone wall, and she's like, oh, who is that? She also asked me about my actual career endeavors, not just, what my major is. So it was really interesting. I had a nice talk with her, and by the end of lecture, we ended up exchanging contact information so that we could meet up and study for exams, which is actually coming up this Thursday. So I'm looking forward to that. And so off to the bad. When I got home, I waited until my mom made eye contact with me in the kitchen, and she just looked at me and she's like, oh, like what's going on? She got very defensive right away, and I got very offended. I was like, I don't need anything. I'm just here to like smile, and she just reacted very in a bad way. So this made me feel really guilty. It made me realize that she doesn't expect me to show nonverbal respect. I always tell her how much I love her, how much I respect her, but showing it is completely different and a lot more genuine. And now off to the ugly. After I ate dinner one day, I was cleaning up and my brother asked me if I needed help. I said, thank you so much. As I repeated, I respect you in my head, but I think I got this. And he just looked at me, he smiled, and he came up to me and he hugged me. And he's a very affectionate kid, but the fact that he reacted so surprisingly made me feel even worse. You may be thinking that this is such a beautiful reaction, but it made me feel so, so bad. He's always showing me how much he respects me, so I always assume that he thinks I respect him as well, but clearly I don't show it as much as I should. So overall, even though I got, some bad and ugly experiences, I really appreciate that we did the assignment. It taught me that perhaps I should start implementing more nonverbal respect so that I could strengthen the relationships I make with acquaintances and close family members. Thank you.
Thank you.
That was 308.
Thank you. Okay, in the back, continue, please.
Hi, Kelly.
Hi, Kelly.
I thought you were just really clear. Your voice is really clear and easy to follow along, and it was really concise. I liked your speech. I don't know. Yeah, I just thought it was really easy to follow along. I liked that it was family oriented.
Thank you, Kelly. Improvement.
Hi, I'm Cindy.
Hi, Cindy.
I really like your speech. I think it's really personal, and it's the only thing I would recommend is to maybe practice walking, because it seems like it breaks up your speech sometimes, and you tend to turn a little further away from the audience sometimes. So that's the only thing I can think of. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Cindy. Yeah, those were good comments. Yeah, Lou, liked your speech. I like the mother story. I've had a lot of those, especially people go home and they go, can I help with the dishes? And they go, what's wrong with you? And then one mother even said, are you pregnant? It's like, wow, boy. Mothers aren't used to getting nonverbal respect in some cases. And you're right, they really pick it up and they notice it, at least in your case, so that was a good story. Anyway, let me start at the top. You started with electronic devices and emojis, and I thought I'd hear about that as a tie-back, but I didn't. But I'll just remind you, Lou, of a story, a poem, a quote, or a joke, to start your speech, to grab us, to draw us in, to make us want to listen, and then you have something more substantive to tie back to, okay? Just a little more info with your thesis preview with your voice, and do this in an outline form. You know what you know what I mean by that, really. The Roman numerals and not paragraphs, okay? And this will help you highlight the parts too when you speak. Yeah. I like the story about getting a study buddy. That was excellent. Yeah, and people should do that more because that's where often real learning takes place, in my opinion. As when you study with another person and you bounce ideas off each other. You know, this whole idea at UCLA of, this great, wonderful professor throws ideas at this group of 500 and you regurgitate it. We call that education. There's something wrong with that picture, in my opinion. That's all you do, So anyway, I'll get off my soapbox now. On your mother story, I've already talked about it. It was really good, on your brother's story, it was actually a good story, but it made you feel guilty, and I hope that inspires you to change and not be so distant and unexpressive toward your family and the world. That's what this exercise is about. Lou. Your conclusion, I'd like you to hear more of a highlight of you saying, what did I learn? So that really stands out what you're talking about. Other than that, and the tie back is a nice job. Thank you. Just a little longer, 307 was not short. Okay. Hello, how you doing? Where's our time? Good. Christina, are eyeballs upon you?
Yes,
Can you
sir.
take a half step that way? A little bit more, that right there. Good. Okay, all eyeball over upon you. Would you say your name and start your speech?
Hello everyone, my name is Christina.
Hi, Christina.
I am usually the type of person that tends to put on my earphones, my headphones, and then just get to point A to point B without any sort of interference. I do tend to zone out and drown out the things that are around me. So when Professor Miller told us to non-verbally tell people that we respect them, it was something to get me out of the cycle that I've been doing for a long time. So I would look someone in the eye, I would smile at them, and I would nod at them whenever I got the chance to tell them that I non-verbally respect them. I would actually like to go through the bad, the ugly, and the good. Now in terms of the bad, I've noticed that it was very hard for me to keep this cycle of telling people that I non-verbally respect them. Every time I did tend to make eye contact with someone and they would look at me, I would tend to turn away. I would get nervous that they would think that I was staring at them or something. And I thought that this was very interesting to see that that was my reaction. And also, there were people that did not look my way when I told them non-verbally that I respected them. In terms of the ugly, I work at an animal hospital in 3 different departments. I work as a receptionist, a kennel attendant, and then a vet assistant. This day, I happened to work as a receptionist. A client was on the way to pick up her dog that was there for a dental and ear cleaning. She was very upset that no one called her to tell her that her dog was ready for pickup and that she was not confirmed, or no one called her to say why treatments were done. So I tried to tell her what I knew about the case, and she was very angry. She kept on saying that she's a doctor and that she works long hours and she was in school for a long time and she deserves better than this. So I tried to keep this respectful vibe towards her, and I would say, okay, I'll help you the best that I can. The doctor that did help on the case with the pets wasn't there anymore, so I went back to my coworkers to see what I had to do. And then I noticed that one of my coworkers actually collapsed. She might have had either an allergic reaction or an asthma attack, so I knew that I was helping a client that was a doctor. I ran back to her and I asked her if she can help, and my coworker collapsed. She looks at me and she says, I can't believe you're asking me this. Do you know how unprofessional this is? She's like, I can lose my license for this. I want my dog and I want to speak to the doctor. I was shocked. I didn't know what to say. So I just asked her, are you going to tell me or not? At this point, I lost any sort of respect that I can give anymore. In the end though, my coworker's fine. She got her dog. It was a happy ending. In terms of the good, I've noticed that I actually got closer to my coworkers. When I am at work, I do just tend to do what I'm supposed to do at work. But I actually did take the time to tell them that I non-verbally respect them, and then I actually made conversation with them. And I actually did get closer to them, and I do consider some of them now as my friends, which was really good. But what I noticed though is that I only received any sort of good experience through people that I already knew. It just heightened the relationship that we had. So what I've noticed throughout this experiment is that for me, respect needs to be in both ways. Just like with the doctor, she did not respect what I was trying to do or trying to help her with. And just that, just that technology does tend to change the way that we interact with people. I do notice that we tend to be more social with people through social media than the people that are around us. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, in the back, please continue.
Hi, Jennifer.
Hi, Jennifer.
Like your speech in terms of the consistent connection that you try to make with your audience throughout the speech, and I like your vocal writing. I think it's very interesting and easy to follow.
Okay, good. Thank you, Jennifer. Improvement.
Hi. Oh my God. I'm Nicole.
Hi, Nicole.
I really liked your stories, particularly the bad one with the doctor calling your dog. But actually, I thought that it could have been made even better with a little more of a variation.
Okay, great. Yeah. You come back to the center of the room. Okay, good. Well, I liked your speech. I liked your story of the doctor who, I've never heard of a doctor with someone that's collapsed or dying. It says, die. I'm suspicious that she was a doctor, but hey, what do I know? Okay, all right. I liked your story. That was good, but let me give you some feedback. Christina, I'd like to see you work on your walking. If you'll see, I did my best to keep up with you, but you didn't really walk there and stand and deliver in the power stance, walk there, stand and deliver in the power stance, and come back to center and stand and deliver in the power stance. So do that, and you'll complement your parts of the speech, and it won't be quite so distracting. Yeah. So you did tie back to the earbud thing, which I liked, and that was good. You talked about the way you drowned out for surroundings, and so I hope that will be a permanent change. The surroundings are pretty nice here anyway. what do I know? Again, I've said to others, I want the rest of your speeches to be in an outline form, okay? It means Roman numerals and short paragraphs. And I'd like to hear you emphasize the parts of the speech more so we have a better sense of your narrative. The good, the bad, the ugly, like that, yeah. So you started with the ugly, which was kind of interesting. You made a rhetorical choice to switch up the order, which was fine. Just tell us why.
Oh, the reason that I changed it is because the good didn't really stand out to me as more people like they had really good experiences with people that they didn't know strangers. Well, I didn't.
So you said, I didn't really have any great good experiences, so I'm going to start with my killer ugly experience, right? Yeah, okay, great. That's, you see, you're already out of my camera ring, so just stay there. Yeah, good, thank you. Yeah. Yeah, it was a great beginning story. It was a great grabber. My word, I'm a doctor and I deserve better. I'm entitled, and oh my God, call your doctor and get her in here, and oh my God. Yeah, my word, okay. Yeah. And it's unprofessional for you to ask me for help. Oh my Lord. Okay, yeah. Okay, and I think that if you were you repeating the mantra as you walked around in campus
Yes,
and daily
yeah.
life, and you, just people basically ignored you, right? And when you were, say, like talking to new people or different people, would you occasionally throw in to yourself as you were listening, I respect you, so you were attentive and you didn't notice any difference, right? Or when you were talking to your family, did you throw in, I respect you, and they didn't notice any difference in you?
I haven't gone home, so.
You don't know, okay. But you did notice that with people that knew you, did you notice a little change? Yeah, okay. All right, well, now other people have found that there will be a connection, so don't give up, you know. And you're, what was the time on this again?
I'm sorry, it's 3:56.
3:56, okay, good. So use a little bit more time. I like your tie back. And just work on your walk so it's a little clearer. And other than that, nice job, Christina. Thank you. Okay, next, yes, hello, how are you doing? Okay, Jennifer, are all a little bit better power stance, so yeah, thank you. Power stance, feet wider than your shoulders, good, yes, good, good. Just a little bit that way, yeah. Just a touch, yeah, thank you. Very nice. Okay. Jennifer, are all eyeballs upon you? Yes, great. Say your name, feel the love, and start your speech.
Hello, everybody. Jennifer.
Hi, Jennifer.
So 48 hours that I verbally respected everyone that I ran into. I experienced different responses and different reactions from people. Mostly, I think I was fortunate because people gave me positive responses in most cases. But we're not living in an ideal world, so I did have some people really didn't respect me as they could have, and some people really misunderstood my message. So those actually never discouraged me because my mom always tells me, good people leave you with memories, bad people leave you with lessons. So I'm going to share with you my memories and my lesson today through the good, the bad, and the ugly stories. So the good story was actually right after the lecture. After the assignment was given, I had an appointment with my physical therapist, Kristen, and I needed to see the therapist because I have some tension headaches due to like sitting for 1 hour at work. So I don't know about you guys, but normally, just generally speaking, I hope most of you will agree with me. When you see a doctor or a healthcare provider, that's when you normally don't feel well. You feel very uneasy sometimes, and you can be like in pain too, right? Depending on the severities of the conditions. So I normally don't try to be sociable in that case, but for the sake of this experiment, I did pay attention to what I did. So I make more eye contact with the therapist and smile to her. And I noticed that her reaction totally changed this time. So instead of trying to have me get in and out as quickly as possible, this time she actually tried to ask more questions about my daily life, about my career, and my plans for the weekends. And another thing that she did that I really appreciated is that she actually, so normally she would instruct me how to do a certain exercise and watch me do, but this time she actually got to the floor and did the exercise, practicing together with me. So I think that's a good memory. And the bad story was just a day after that, I came back to the clinic for a follow-up, and I showed up 3 minutes late because they decided to change the location last minute, so I didn't know about it until I got there. But I approached the counter and apologized to the nurse because the incident happened. The nurse seemed very unhappy, but I just took it as like because my tiredness or something like that. But she did her job. She took my weight and sent me into the room to see a doctor. And at the end of their appointment, the doctor, before she left, she told me that she'd give me some refills for my medication. So I was just sitting there waiting to like her what I'm like supposed to do next. But 10 minutes passed by and no one came in. So finally the nurse came and she asked me with a very surprising that like, have you been here the whole time? I'm like, yeah, I was waiting for permission to leave basically. And she just totally ignored my response and just yanked the door open and came to the computer and told me that my medication was ready and I was supposed to leave and pick up the medication. So I think that it wasn't because I'm being late anymore. I think it's just how she was. And the ugly story was when I ran into a couple on the sidewalk on my way home. I tried to deliver eye contact with the man, but he was just busy keep looking at his phone and never responded to me. But then 2 seconds later, the woman actually came across me and she gave me a very suspicious and like puzzled look. I think she was wondering, I believe rather, that she was wondering why I keep looking at her man for such a while or something. So totally she misunderstood my message. So at that moment, I learned that sometimes when you non-verbally communicate to someone, your message could be mistakenly interpreted, not necessarily by the person that you initially try to convey to, but by someone else that witnessed your action. So regardless of all the unintentional consequences, I personally feel happy being a respectful individual. I think that you also, like in terms of respect, you also need to be truthful about yourself, because the nurse in my backstory, obviously she provided me the service that I need, but she didn't really genuinely respect me. So I think it's hard to be consistent in terms of how we may act to every single person that you meet in your life, but at least try to rate, your awareness and act in the most appropriate way. I think that could never hurt. So thank you.
Thank you.
449.
4:49, boy, that's good. Cutting it right to 5 minutes, huh? Very nice, thank you. Jennifer? In the back, let's continue, please.
Hi, Mia.
Hi, Nia.
Spoke really well. You articulated your words really clearly, and you had a really clear storyline, and it was really easy to follow. Sorry for the just.
Okay, thank you, Nia.
Hi, I'm Jane.
Hi.
I really liked your speech, and your stories were really, really beautiful. I think a little bit more like division and inflection in your voice might have been helpful, just to like really like distinct the good from the bad, like the negative experience from the good. But super, super good speech. Thank you.
Jennifer, yeah. Gosh. Yeah. Well, I like your stories. You seem to be a very kind and polite person. And maybe that's a little bit to your detriment, as we heard from your stories, permission to leave the doctor's office was, you know, my God, the nurse thought, get out of here, you know, and you thought, my God, what's wrong with her? And she thought, what's wrong with you? You know, so maybe it's a cultural thing, maybe it's, you know, but it was an interesting story that you told there, and that was good, yeah. So let's talk about your intro. You had a good quote, which I like. I wish you had started up top with it instead of burying it down.
I thought about that last. I changed last minute.
What?
I thought about starting it with the
Speak
code.
slower, what?
I thought about starting the speech with the code.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I guess because my nervousness, I'm standing here.
You buried it, yeah. Okay. So she wrote here, good people leave you with memories, bad people leave you with lessons, yeah. So I was hoping that, because you sort of mentioned that in one of your story things, but I would have loved to have heard that at the end, you know, as a really vivid tie back. That would have been great. So that's the first thing I suggest is have a better tie back, okay? Yeah. On the good story, people like to be respected, and your physical therapist that got down on the ground with you and showed you how to do it and asked about everything, sensed you were genuinely respecting her and not treating her as a technician, you know. And that's great. And remember that vividly, how that happened, and make it happen more in your life, you know. That was a great story, yeah. On the bad, yeah, well, you know, I don't know why that happened, but, you know, yeah, but I don't know if it's cultural or what, but it happened, yeah. On the ugly, yeah. Well, yeah. First off, you're supposed to say, I respect you, and look away. You're not supposed to stare. You're not supposed to stare at a couple, one person longer than the other, especially a couple where a woman will think you're trying to steal the man. I would look more at the woman and, you know, like say, you have a beautiful baby, ma'am, and sort of ignore the man so she's put at ease, you know. But yeah, if you only were staring at the husband, she's gotta be wondering, what are you up to? So, you know, you were a little responsible for that, I think, you know, yeah. So yeah, I don't know if she misunderstood your message. I guess your heart was pure, but I want to caution everybody, you know, you say, I respect you, you just say it and you look away. You don't stare at people, you know, yeah. What you learned, yeah, could have been a little longer, but you were kind of out of time. A couple of things about your nonverbal behavior, which I want you to notice tonight on YouTube. Yeah. First off, you do this with your hands, you steeple. Get rid of that. That's bad. Don't ever steeple with your hands, okay? That puts off an audience. Okay? And you weren't exactly moving properly. Let me see you walk now. 3 steps. Tell us about your day. 3 steps to the right, 5 steps to the left, and then back the same. Tell us about your day. Yeah.
So this morning I woke up about 9 o'clock, and I received an email from.
I think you want to take A little bit bigger steps, but yeah. A little bit bigger
So I
steps.
received an email from an employer that I recently got hired for a position that I applied last week. So
Stay there a minute and keep talking, yeah.
so I needed to go to a registrar office to get some documents that are required. And after
Keep talking, stay there a minute. Now, when you're over here, you're working these people, so look at them, see? Glance over at this fella here, but work them mostly when you're over here, okay? Now, 5 steps to your left, lead with your left foot, and keep your body sheeted forward. Okay, keep talking and do that.
So after I got back from the
Bigger
registrar
steps.
office, I went to my lab and I did some experiment. I printed out the summary for my speech today.
Stop this a minute. You're not you didn't get very far over there. There's a bigger steps next time. You're almost still in the center, see? So take 2 more steps. Okay, yeah, good. See what I mean?
Yeah.
So take bigger steps, okay. Keep talking, tell us more. Now let's see you get back to
I printed the summary for my speech today. Sorry, step back.
Now come back to the center, yeah.
So that was.
Oh, you don't ever lead. You lead with the foot you're heading in that direction. So you lead with your right foot. Okay.
Yeah. So I printed the report, and I was thinking that I was being late, so I ran to.
Yeah.
So I happened to run for like a couple of minutes. That's when I got in the room, it felt so warm.
By the way, I want to remind everybody, please only print on one side of the paper. Thank you. Okay, yeah. So that was some of the things I want you to work on. Your nonverbal and I agree, with a little more vocal variety. And when you come to a stop after taking bigger steps, I want you to have your feet in the tripod-wide position. Don't have them together, okay? Thank you very much, Jennifer. Okay, we have another volunteer. Hello, how you doing? Thank you for volunteering. No. We have 1, 2, 3, 4 more. At least I have 4 blanks. Maybe we have some absentee voters. Okay. You the last one? You think so? Okay. Great. Okay. Son, are all eyes upon you? All eyeballs? Yeah. Pretty much. No one's texting. All computers are closed. Yeah. Great. Okay. Say your name and feel the love and start your speech.
Hi, I'm Son.
Hi, Son.
So when we first got the assignment to express nonverbal respect, I was like, this is a piece of cake. I do this every day. Like when I see my friends, we don't even say hi. We just look at each other. We just give each other the nod. You know? And of course, I couldn't do that with a random like elderly woman, but like a smile, like eye contact, and saying I respect you, that I could do. So I thought it was gonna be easy, but it turns out that while there was a lot of good, there was also some bad and some ugly. So let me start off with the good. I actually had a job interview like 2 weeks ago with this tutoring company, and I was like really late, and I booked it to class, and or not the class, to the room, and I was just thinking, like, I need to make a good introduction. I need to show this person respect. So I walk in immediately, and I just walk to the first person I see, and I shake his hand, and I make eye contact, I smile, and I say, I respect you in my head. And he just starts laughing. I was like, did I do something wrong? Like, I am confusion. And he was like, oh, I'm the janitor. So, and he pointed at the other guy who was in the room. He said, oh, that's the actual manager. So, as awkward as that was, it actually became a good moment because after I really needed to use the restroom, and the place was closing, and like the janitor had just locked the restroom, and I I showed him that like I really needed to go, and he was like, "Oh, I got you." And I'd like to think that my surprising amount of respect for a janitor really influenced him to help me there. Now, as for the bad, this one took place like a couple weeks ago when I was hanging out with my sisters. Me and my sisters, we don't talk much when we hang out, but when we do, our eyes are still glued to like our computers. So this one time she was telling me about like how at nursing school she has had all this stress, and like one girl apparently turned off another girl's alarm because she wanted her to to miss her exam. And
God.
I thought it was really serious, so I put my stuff aside, I turned toward my sister, and I made eye contact, and then I said, "I respect you," and she was kind of taken back by it. She was like, "Are you okay? Like, did I offend you? I don't know." And I was like, "No, I'm just trying to show you respect." And I think in this instance, it's different from the good, because in the good, someone reciprocated kindness, but here she didn't take it negatively, but she was kind of surprised by it, which makes sense in a culture where everyone's always looking down and not looking up. Now, as for the ugly, it was a similar experience. I was playing basketball, and the guys I play with are like 6'6". So there was one time when one of the guys I played with, he did like a spin move and then he dunked on someone, and he got like really hyped, and he was walking around like high-fiving everyone, and then but the thing is, I'm like 5'5", so I was trying to high-five him. I was making eye contact, I was doing everything, but I think like he walked straight past me, he didn't even see me. So my sister was taken back, but this guy didn't even notice me, like literally. So what I learned was some people will reciprocate respect, some people might be taken back by it or react negatively, and then other people might just not see you. So it wasn't as easy to get a good response. But at the end of the day, I felt good no matter like what the response was, and I hope that this experiment becomes a habit.
Next. Somewhere back here, whatever.
Yeah, hi everyone, it's Ted.
Hi, Ted.
I mean, I love your stories, and I think your conclusion is really perfect, and I think you are a little nervous, so just be free as yourself next time. So, yeah, good one.
Thank you. Improvement?
I love your speech.
Name?
I'm Aurora, sorry.
What's your name? Aurora, yeah, I
I love
forgot.
your speech, and I think your speech can be louder if you work more and relax yourself more. But your story is good.
Yeah, great.
And I was for
What? 401? Thank you, J.D. All right. Yeah. You have let's see your hands. We won't think you have a gun. I was going to see your hands. Okay. Stay in the power stance. It's a good habit to be in, yeah. Well, you said as your intro that you and your friends always look at each other and so do this all the time. And so I was wondering if you were going to tie back to your friends, or you couldn't do it to the old lady, or you even had the Urban Dictionary, which you didn't quote. But yeah, I was just wondering what you were going to tie back to, but so I'm looking for a tie back. Okay. And so, did you have a concept of a tie back? What were you thinking you tied back to, or what? No, it didn't tie back. Okay. So, if you had a poem, a quote, or a story, or a joke, have you heard me instruct others on how to do it? You know what I'm talking about, right? Yeah. Okay, great. So do that next time, please. Yeah. And secondly, son, I'm looking for an outline in Roman numerals, okay, with the headings, intro, thesis, sig statement, summary, conclusion, tie back in Roman numerals, and just a little shorthand. Okay, yeah. Well, gosh, That was a great first story of, shaking the janitor's hand. I love that story. That's a great story. So tired. No, I have a good story, I can tell, but I won't. Yeah, but that was a great story, and that's a great story of a sincere mistake, and it paid off. And similar to his request, you know, the idea of just being respectful, even thinking he was the manager or the boss or whatever he was, whatever, gardener or whatever, you know, everybody deserves respect, so, yeah. And you got to use the restroom, so that was excellent, yeah. As for the bad, your sister was not used to you really listening to her. And especially if you put your phone down and put your eyeballs on her and just face her, full orientation and listen to her, it often freaks people out, as it sort of did your sister. At first, I thought you actually said it verbally the way she seemed to react so weirdly, but you did it non-verbally, right? Yeah. So, wow. And when you explained that you were just listening and respected her, she thought that was kind of weird, huh? Or she thought it was okay, or what'd she think?
She thought like she said something wrong.
Yeah.
I was gonna tell her.
Are you on LSD or something? Yeah, okay, all right, okay, good, yeah. All right. Yeah, I've heard people, you know, accuse people of, you know, you're weird today. And often say that to people when they're especially attentive. And it's sad. Yeah. Okay, so I liked your sister's story. You know, even though it was bad, there were some good parts to it that I liked. On the ugly, yeah. Do you think he purposely dissed you?
I tapped him on the butt after.
Oh, you did? Yeah.
Then he noticed me.
And then he, yeah, so he didn't
First
purposely.
bill.
Yeah, okay, yeah. All right, okay, good, yeah. So, again, I like what I got out of this, but I would have liked the pieback. So, good job. Just, you know, work on the things that we talked about, and you'll be fine. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, do we have any more? Let me call some names out. Is Carolina here?
Yes, sir.
Okay. You did it already? Oh, I didn't record it. I gotta find
She's
it.
the first person who did it.
Oh, the first person. Okay, that's why. And someone with the last name of Wong or Wang? No? We lost them, huh? You're Wong? Anthony Wong? How Pengqu? Is that you? That's no one. Okay, good. All right, we lost them. Okay, how about Zhang? Xiting? Okay. Our work is done. Give yourself a round of applause. Yeah. Okay, do you want to see the respect speech now, or do you want to just segue into the film speech and I'll show you the respect speech on Thursday? What's your preference? You want to leave now?
What do you mean by respect?
What?
What do you mean by show us the respect?
Show you the PC speech coming up. Okay, we'll call it a day. Return with honor. Thank you, everyone.